All right, YouTube fam, we're back for another one. And tonight, it is a beautiful Los Angeles night. It's literally perfect here. It's 68 degrees, there's no clouds. So I'm on the porch. If we get the occasional, what you call it, car passing by, then my apologies. But I got to, what do you call it? This podcasting thing, I'm starting to figure out, just like everything else, it's like a muscle. And I got to keep moving towards the goals, right? Just like we all do. I'm going to end up cutting all that. So let's start over. Or about, a minute and a half in. What's up, YouTube fam? It's Tyler. We're back for another, I guess is this our first Sunday evening smoke sesh? So my goal was to do 3 episodes this week. I'm only getting 2, but it's better than I've done in a long time. And so I've decided, like, this one's even more raw than the last one, which is fine. Like, I don't think anybody really cares. Like, if you want a, what do you call it? A podcast that's produced to the gills, it has a team of 5 or 6 people, somebody doing research, somebody, writing outlines, another person getting clips together, then I can recommend, I don't know, 10 or 20 different podcasts. But this one it's a hang. You know what I mean? I listen to hang podcasts all the time, so, and clearly from the numbers on YouTube, other people listen to this. So I forgot last time to put up the email, because part of the idea behind this is kind of like, speaking of podcasts, like kind of like Conan needs a friend. I mean, I'm good on friends, you know what I'm saying? But I'm always looking for, more people, well, I guess friends, but people that I can talk art with, and right now on this pod, it's really just about film and prestige TV, pretty much, and it's my definition of prestige TV. But I think we're going to branch out a little bit, because into books, I should say, the occasional book, because as you know, I've been on this quest for, chasing the white whale, Steven Soderbergh, for content consumption, and I'm doing pretty good. I feel good about my efforts so far, even though it's really hard. I'm writing about a week from publishing my first actual novel. So I'm super nervous about that, grinding really hard on that, also doing other stuff. It's just, life is crazy, but making time to consume, right? Because that was something, I can't remember if I've mentioned this before, and I guess we should go ahead and light this bowl up here. But I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but I was talking to someone, I don't know, a couple months ago, and like, I was really stressed out because I felt like I wasn't working hard enough. Like, I was working hard, but like, I felt like I was wasting time, or spending too much time trying to watch new stuff, and this other person was a creative also, and they kind of reminded me that, your ideas are just going to kind of dry up, if you're not constantly consuming other new stuff. And then I saw that article about Soderbergh. I've talked about this 100%. So I'm not going to say anything else, but maybe a new listener, hey listeners, if you're new, then maybe you didn't catch that episode where I was talking about how I became obsessed with I love Steven Soderbergh movies, but it was just when I saw this list of like what this man did in a year, and I was like, wow, like I thought I watched a lot of stuff, but it kind of makes sense, when you see um he's not alone, it's a lot of creatives. It's actors, it's actresses, painters, directors, cinematographers, like they're all constantly consuming. So I did bring my journal. I've been good this week. I'm trying to remember where we left off last time. I think last time we're gonna pause. All right, I remember where we left off. So last week I had watched Mean Girls, which, good Lord, I'm gonna have to shut the screen door or the fucking. All right, had a little Harley action there, so I had to pause for a minute. But okay, I remember now. So yeah, last week it was Mean Girls, and I watched a couple other movies. I think American Fiction I mentioned, and I'd started True Detective, the new season. So yes, I did a deep dive this week into. I not only finished the latest season, which I think it actually ended a few weeks ago. So I'm not going to spoil the season here. So if you haven't watched it, don't worry about it. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, like just my overall impressions and just thoughts in general on kind of the fuss. Maybe you heard, maybe you didn't, but the series creator, and I think I mentioned this last week, kind of it's what got my attention because it had been on my radar and I love Jodie Foster, but it just wasn't a super high priority until the article, or I saw the blurb I saw about Nick Pizzolatto kind of hating on it. So I finished that, and then I'm going to just run through like some of the movies I watched real quick, because I think what happened last time, and this has happened every episode that I've done, is I watch all this shit and then I only get, I spend about 30 minutes talking and I only get through about, I don't know, a third, or maybe if I'm lucky, half of what I actually watched. So I'm just going to say this time, because what I've been doing is, if you take a look at the channel, I'll kind of do shorts and scenes and other stuff about whatever I've talked about on the pod like that week. So it'll kind of hopefully start to make sense over time, and once the team continues to grow, then it'll kind of start to congeal into this vision that I have, like where everything will kind of be connected, and there'll be shorts and scenes and breakdowns and all that stuff. So yeah, there will be working on some synopses for True Detective, Night Country, but so I'm going to just go through everything else on my journal for this week. So, or since the last episode. So The Zone of Interest, holy shit, amazing. Probably the best Nazi movie or World War II movie. I don't want to say World War II movie because that's a crowded field. That's like Saving Private Ryan and all that stuff, but different. But best Nazi movie since Schindler's List. I mean, it's in the pantheon immediately with like, what's that? What's the one? Diary of Anne Frank, Schindler's List, Munich, which I'm going to rewatch because this made me want to rewatch Munich. Which Munich isn't really Nazis. It's really more, that's a whole nother thing. Has to do with like the Jewish people in Israel. But anyway, I digress. So The Zone of Interest, I'm going to just give a brief like elevator pitch for it. Let me see what the watch options are for it right now. So it's available. Oh, yeah, it's $20 on Prime to rent or buy. I don't, if you're into this kind of movie, it's an easy buy because it's kind of perfect. So it follows a family during World War II who is assigned to work at the Auschwitz concentration camp. It's essentially, I think the manager. I'm not gonna pull his name up because who cares? But actually, I should. So it was directed by. Actually, this was an Oscar nom. This is why I wanted to watch it because I'd seen most of the Oscar nominees, but I hadn't seen this one. So I do not know this guy. Christian Friedel plays Rudolf Haas. He's like the bigwig at the Auschwitz, and he may be. I saw it's based on a book, so he may be the actual guy. And then his wife is played by Sandra Hüller. Her name is Hedwig Haas, and she is the lead in the other one I just watched that was nominated at Cannes, Anatomy of a Fall. So big year for her, man. She's fucking awesome in this movie too. Like she was good in the other one, but like this one, I don't know. She sparked something to me, even though her role is like really kind of subdued. Because he's the like I say, he's the bigwig at Auschwitz, and so it's kind of like a long time ago. I worked at the prison. I was a prison guard for like a year while I was in college, and they had this deal where you could work on the prison and you could also live for like a reduced fee, right? Like they had these little bungalows or like little small tiny houses where if you were a prison guard or like you could, like I said that already, but like I forget how much it cost, but maybe like $100 or something like that a month, and you could live there. And all the way up to the warden, like the warden's house was there too. And so that's what this was like. This guy Haas and his family set up shop. They have this badass little house with a giant garden and all these I guess servants who were probably Jewish people from the camp, like the lucky couple that got to come over and work in the house, kind of like on a plantation, I guess. But it was just their life, man. And that's what was so crazy about it is to them, it's just another job. It's just another house. It's just another day. Like they're almost oblivious to what's going on, with the people next door. And the way that the sound design was done, it's like there are times where, like, if it's quiet on the plantation, I call it a plantation, on the house or whatever, like the master's house, the house, the villa, when it's quiet there, you can hear shit going on at the concentration camp, and it's so creepy by design, and it's just amazing. And I told myself, like, towards the end of this one, I was like, will I ever watch this again? Like, because it's not a feel-good movie. Like, that's the thing. Like, you're kind of, I don't know. Like, for me personally, at first I was like, what am I watching? And then, like, when you settle in, you're like, oh, this is, like, deeply upsetting. And then, there's a scene it's in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler. The kids are playing with teeth. Like, I guess they picked him up outside or like found it somewhere, from one of the incinerators. And it's like he's got his little flashlight out and it's night and it's bedtime, and it's like just a little normal kid, right? Could have been anything. Could have been an Arrowhead or whatever, in another country, but he lives on a concentration camp, so he found some poor person's teeth and kept it as a souvenir. And it's just the discussions, like the ambivalence towards everything. And there's this scene where they're discussing with Haas, like the big boss man, like he's very good at his job, and they're talking about bringing in more efficient incinerators, and it's just the way that they talk about it and the disconnect. It's a must watch, I would say. Um, just like Schindler's List was. I'm sure like this movie will be. Well, I don't know. I say this. I know when I went to high school, history teachers loved movies like this. So, like, I would imagine like high school students across the United States will be indoctrinated with it next year. So yeah, the Zone of Interest, highly recommend it. Fantastic. And then the next thing in my journal is, I don't know why. I think one day, like I don't know. I probably just got stoned. Speaking of, let's go ahead and hit this. By the way, I don't think I've mentioned here. I was in Vegas over the holidays, and I was debating setting up an office there, and did, temporarily, but I think it had been so long since I'd been in LA, like I didn't realize the weed here is it probably like some of the best and least expensive on the planet. Like, I didn't realize how much more expensive, and probably because Vegas is touristy. I got way off track here, but I'm just going to get this out. It's like half the price in LA as it is in Vegas, which seems ridiculous for a higher THC level. It's crazy. Like 30% here. Flower, we're talking. Like, I don't really mess with like the concentrates and all that other stuff. But if you're talking flower to flower, LA on average is half the price for 5 to 10% higher THC. That's amazing. All right. So anyway, just random. Oh, I think I know what it was. I was looking around for like a new podcast, because I listen to podcasts too. And I don't listen to my own. And I found this one, which I highly recommend if you're a Battlestar Galactica fan, because that's what the next thing in my log was. Is I watched the first half of the mini-series for Battlestar Galactica, the new series, because I think what I really enjoy and what I'm going to try and start gearing towards is anniversaries of stuff that I've really enjoyed or is like really good. So 5, 10-year, 20-year anniversaries. So that's what was crazy to me, is I saw that it was coming up on the 20th anniversary of Battlestar Galactica, which to me was an amazing series. And so I watched the first half of that. So I'll put some more scenes up. I think I put one, like the initial. I mean, it's as relevant now as it ever has been. Like, we're moving into the AI age, and that's really what Battlestar is, right? The humans created a race of, I think initially it was just robots to do like, they were kind of like slave labor basically, and then I can't. Now I'm going to have to watch. It gets into it later in the series, but I'm forgetting how they made the jump. Oh, I think that's what it was. So, like, there was an original series, and then there was like a time jump, right? And then in the new series, there's supposed to have been like 50 years or something between the first Cylon War and the second, or like in this one, the armistice. There was an armistice, right? Like the Cylons go off into some distant part of space. This is all from memory, and I'm stoned as fuck now. So they go off into space, distant quadrant, aren't seen for like years and years and years, but the humans create this, I think it's like an armistice station, where they show up every year. Like they send one guy and they wait for like a representative of the Cylons just to make sure that like everything is still good, right? Like we're still in an armistice. And if you don't know, an armistice is like a ceasefire. So finally, it's like so many years later, 50 years later, 100 years later, something like that. And one of them finally shows up. Or like they show up and it's two robots, like the old school ones. And then they have a new model, which is the beautiful Trisha Helfer, which is the podcast that I was going to tell you about. So there is a podcast of Trisha Helfer, who had never seen like the full series, rewatching all of Battlestar Galactica. So if you're into Battlestar Galactica and you like those commentary, like watch along podcasts, look for it on Spotify. I think it's just called the Battlestar Podcast. But you can rewatch the whole thing with along with the Cylon number 6, played by Trisha Helfer. So anyway, so when the Cylon 6 shows up in this armistice station, the basically the Cylons launch an attack on all of humanity. They destroy Armistice Station and then hit every I mean, it's literally the opening of the series. Like, they nuke everything. Every human civilization. I think there's 12 colonies that are similar or like based kind of like the Zodiac. So there's like Geminon and Caprica and all that stuff. So there's like 12 colonies. They nuke all those fuckers. And so humanity is reduced to like, I want to say like 40,000 or 50,000 people from like billions. And so that's it. Like, that's the series, is humanity's struggle for survival against its own creation. Right? So yeah, highly recommend Battlestar. I'm going to do, so all these things that I'm talking about, like the plan is to eventually have, like I said, essentially like a full suite of videos around them, shorts, character breakdowns, synopses, and so on. So yeah, Battlestar, it's coming up on the miniseries actually aired in 2003, and then it was a year before the series started in full. So this is actually the 20-year anniversary of the first season. So more of that to come. All right, and then I crushed all the rest of True Detective. And so this is where, like, I really kind of like got into this debate in my head and with like a friend, and then I listened to a couple of podcasts just talk about a few episodes because I wanted to get like like some other impressions, because I have very strong feelings about True Detective. It's one of my favorite series, has been since the beginning. I think I mentioned this last time. I'm also a big fan. I enjoy season 2. I know a lot of people don't like that one. And I noticed like a lot of female watchers and critics kind of had a problem with some of the way females were portrayed in the first season. And then they tried to fix it a little bit with the second season. And people's mileage varied with that one anyway. With is it Rachel McAdams, I think, as Bezarides. So overall, I loved Night Country. I'm not gonna spoil. Yeah, I'm definitely not gonna spoil the end of it. And really not gonna really go into too much details about it, other than to say, like, I see what people's issues with it were, and it depends on what you want out of True Detective and out of your cop shows, right? And I think if you're looking for a super tight, like all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed and all that stuff, and like the detective work is meticulous, then you're probably going to have some problems with it, because I don't think that's what True Detective necessarily is and really ever was. Maybe people like, because of Matthew McConaughey's performance, and then I think they kind of got back to it with season 3, where it was like real, like traditional detective work, with like a gifted detective. But I think Matthew McConaughey kind of slanted things that way, because he was this like super intense, like very deep introspective detective, and like, so with a title, like people kind of take that as the meaning. But going back, so what I did was I finished Night Country. And let me just say, so here's what I thought was great about it. I thought the look of it was just amazing. Like the way that it was shot, it's just beautiful. Like, even though it was like a place that's not supposed to be beautiful, Ennis, Alaska, in that part of the season or the year where it's night constantly. Um, Issa Lopez, I think is her name, and whatever cinematographer she worked with, well, like they had a really like it was very much a vibe, like, and one that I didn't mind being in, like, even for like long periods of time. I mean, there were some scenes where it was like super dark, and like scary, and she used some horror elements. I want to say like there might have even been a jump scare or two, which was different for a True Detective. And like, I think the I don't know what to call them. Like, they're not the OGs, because I'm really an OG. Like, I've been watching it since the beginning too. Um, I would say like the more bro-ish. Like, I don't know. Like, I really don't know what to. The critics of it don't like the horror aspects. Don't like the and they would say supernatural, but I don't really think there's a supernatural element to the show. Like, and I think that's kind of where the line is for people. Like, to me, not a spoiler to say, Callie Reese's character Navarro sees dead people, for lack of a better, like, just to put it out there. Like it's like the Sixth Sense, basically. And like, I didn't watch it that closely, like, and I haven't rewatched episodes yet, but I think she's the only one that sees people. Maybe her sister does too. Like, I feel like her sister's character, but she has other like mental issues. Like, she's diagnosed schizophrenic and stuff. So what some people want to call supernatural elements, like, I'm just calling like mental health elements, because I think the way that they're shot, they look like supernatural, and the way that some people talk about them, they're like supernatural. The way Callie Navarro talks about it, it's like it might be supernatural, like it might be this force, that's like making her see these dead people or whatever. But I think that's whatever you want it to be, or kind of the eye of the beholder, right? But there's a line. Also, Jodie Foster's character says, like, maybe second episode, third episode, but she says there's no boogeyman. And like, that's what I latched on to. Like, because I was kind of iffy. Like, for me, well, I gotta be careful. I don't want to spoil it anymore, because like I venture into spoiler territory. But just to say, it looks beautiful. Like, it's, to me, what True Detective is about these characters that are kind of are their job, almost like can't separate themselves from it, and then are forced into like even deeper, darker situations with like more, you could say, evil or darker aspects of humanity, and like how they deal with it. Like McConaughey, Rust Cole was like a cop on the edge, and in the second season, shit, they were all kind of messed up. Bezarides was like uh, dealing with like hardcore daddy issues, and then like Colin Farrell's got man, I'm like struggling to think of his name, but man, he was like on the take from the mob or from organized crime, like wife drama, kids drama, like all kinds of stuff. And but then they have to like rise to the challenge. And same thing here with like with Jodie Foster. And to me, in that respect, it was exactly a True Detective show. It was Jodie Foster's a solid cop. Navarre, what's a Callie Reese and Navarre, like the other character. They're both solid cops. It's not like they're prodigies or anything like that. And really, most of the they haven't been prodigies, you know, or like Sherlock Holmes type of detectives. But then they're confronted with like this extreme side of humanity and forced to deal with it in their own way. And we see how it impacts them. We see how it impacts their life. And we see whether they're able to like overcome it or not. And what it made me think of was, or something else it made me think of was The Wire. And if you were a fan of The Wire, or there, feel like I've even heard this expression on, I think it's just a Northeast thing. When you, like, cop shows set in, like Baltimore, probably really the Baltimore area is the other one I'm thinking of is this show called We Own the Night, which I think was set in Baltimore also. But Baltimore cops have this thing where they say like, oh, he was real police or she was real police. And like, I think that means like you're kind of like a cop to the bone, you know, like there's no separating you. Like some people just are their job, you know, like, you know, like usually you think of it with being like an artist or something like that, but same thing with a cop. Like they're just a cop. And that's kind of what True Detective means to me now after like watching the fourth season, really thinking about it because of all the like stuff in the media, and then going back and watching like some of the first episodes. Like that's what it is to me. So highly recommend it. If you don't have HBO Max yet, find a way to watch this show. And yeah, I mean, HBO Max is also totally worth, like, they have I think they have the best library outside of Netflix. Like, I get Netflix is just like a natural thing, but to me, like, that number 2 spot, you can't really go wrong with HBO Max. So what else? Oh, and then like let's burn through. Let's keep going. What else we got? Zone of interest. Oh, Black Sea. Not a whole lot to say about this one. Really short. Jude Law came up somehow and heard about this movie. It's called Black Sea. Oh, it's a 20-year anniversary also. Came out in 2014. So perfect. It is really basic. I think it was like an independent. It's a Focus Features movie. So in order to make good with his former employers, a submarine captain takes a job with a shadowy backer to search the depths of the Black Sea for a submarine rumored to be loaded with gold. Super simple story. It was like, I didn't even know they were private sub drivers, to be honest, but Jude Law plays this like rugged ass, like old haggard, like he's usually so pretty, right? But like submarine captain, like a what do you call it? But for a private company, right? And he loses his job, and then this other, like this rando, like it seems rando guy, approaches him with a job going off into international waters. It was like this rumored Nazi sub from like World War II, supposedly sunk with all this gold that was trying to get gold to Hitler, and they have this window to get it where, because of some political stuff going on, like Russia can't go to it, Georgia can't go to it, so like there's this window of opportunity, and like they need an experienced sub driver, and he's got to put together a team. So basically they do. Like Jude Law signs up, he starts putting together this crew of like crazy fucks. Like I think for some reason, because of where they're going, he needs half Russians and half Brits, and they have this old ass rickety sub that they have to fix up before they go. And so it's like, it's not quite World War II generation, but it's like really old, and like, so just real, like, I was just really surprised. Like, I wasn't bored. Like, it was shot really well. Who was the director? Like, I think that's what he said. Like, I think maybe I heard him talking about it, heard Jude Law talking about it, and it was like maybe the director that he really wanted to work with. Oh, Kevin McDonald. Yeah, it was like, what else did he direct? Because he had some pretty big stuff. The Last King of Scotland, State of Play. Yeah, like he had some movies I like. But anyway, yeah. So Black Sea. So what are where can you watch Black Sea? All the places. Let's see. And that's weird. It doesn't even list it. Maybe it's on YouTube. I don't know. So Black Sea, I'll try and find a place, or try and find like where it's available. I want to say I must have watched it on like YouTube or something. But and then the last one for this week was Priscilla. I have also been getting deeper into Sofia Coppola movies, kind of getting obsessed. I watched a little bit. I didn't put it on the list because I didn't watch enough of it to. I'm going to come back to it. One of her other movies that I had never seen, with Kristen Dunst. I'm going to draw a blank on it now. But apparently it was the Queen from Marie Antoinette. That's what it was. The one, because I was like, holy shit, is this the one? And I just watched Napoleon like end of last year, and they cut her head off at the beginning of Napoleon. So I think that's the same one. I'm pretty sure that's who Kirsten Dunst is playing. In Marie Antoinette. So I watched about, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 minutes. It was like very, just like all of Sophia Coppola's movies, like beautiful to look at. Like I kind of want to live in them. But I just didn't get far enough in it to like really say anything meaningful about it, other than it looked amazing like all her movies do. But I did get to watch all of Priscilla, because I'm a fan of, if you've ever watched Euphoria, then you know Nate Jacobs, played by Jacob Elordi. So I've been a fan of his like since Euphoria, and so him playing Elvis was interesting. He was good. I mean, he was fine. Like, I'm not a huge Elvis guy, so I really didn't really care. And the movie is called Priscilla, so it's not even really about Elvis. But he was fine. I thought he was super. Like, I couldn't get over how tall he was. Like, that's the weirdest thing. Like, but that's what jumped out to me, is like the woman who played, young lady who played Priscilla. Let me get her name up here. Kaylee Spaney. I had never seen her before. She was pretty great. Very understated performance. Like, I think she kind of picked her moments, like very mousy a lot of the time, which I'm sure, like, which makes sense, being with like somebody who's such a big personality. It was really more like tragic than I thought. Also based on a book, I think by, let's see, what else was this? Her first big role? She was in On the Basis of Sex. She played Jane Ginsburg, I guess the daughter of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, in a movie. She was in Pacific Rim Uprising. Don't remember that at all. Mayor of Easttown, which is supposedly a really good show that I have not watched. Oh, she was in Devs. I love Devs, but I don't remember her from Devs. She was Lyndon in Devs. I'm gonna have to think about that one. All right, so apparently she's been around a little bit, but yeah, she was really good. I mean, I don't know where this ranks in my top movies of the year yet, but it really, I mean, it really had me thinking a lot. I was kind of thrown off by, I never realized that I guess Elvis was like a groomer, because he meets Priscilla when she's like a freshman in high school and he's already in the military. And like they start dating at that point. So, wow. Yeah, I mean, and that was the thing. Like, as I for like the first third of the movie, like it was really beautiful. I always, like, I know I keep saying that, and like the thing that, like I just kept thinking about Ezra Miller like a lot. Like, wow, like this is, like I couldn't believe how, like I felt bad for Priscilla herself. Like, you see her, like how would she not be? How would she not fall in love? If one, did she even know what love was at that point? Like, to be falling in love, quote unquote, at 15, 16, and then you're in this guy's orbit, and he's like the biggest celebrity in the world at that point for years and years and years, like, and you just see her get sucked into it, man, and like she never has. And I guess that was the thing, it was like it kind of started to wear on me a little bit, because you see, like, it's just so overwhelming, and you see her just get sucked up into this world, and she has no agency, and she has like no power, and you're like, God, this is depressing. And then you kind of see her arc, like she starts to like show up a little bit here and there, and she starts to like show up for herself, or like stand up for herself, and like you see like the influence of the drugs, right, and the partying, and then Elvis himself, like it's not just that he's kind of grooming, like intentionally or unintentionally, he's just kind of a selfish asshole, and then like abusive, on top of it. And like I just wasn't ready for it, man. Like I kind of expected, not that I had a whole lot of expectations going into Priscilla, but I expected kind of like a happier, like whirlwind, like, I mean, I knew obviously how Elvis's story ended, but like for her, like, I don't know, I guess I just expected it to be happier. And instead it ended up kind of being about, you know, finding, I guess, inner strength, and like uh, resilience, and overcoming overcoming shit. Not what I was expecting. So really good, like really, really good movie. And I always love. So I'm gonna be watching some more. I'm gonna go back and watch Marie Antoinette, and then there's another movie she did called The Beguiled that looks pretty good. With, I think that one also has Colin Farrell. Um, oh, and this is something just that I thought was interesting that I've noticed. Going back and watching True Detective season one, which, like I say, a lot of females have noted. Like, I didn't really notice it because I'm a guy, but when someone brings your attention to it, like, then it's different, right? Like, so I started looking at how women were portrayed in like kind of sex scenes and sexual situations, and I see a difference now. Um, Even in True Detective season 4, Night Country, versus 1, where you have a female versus a male director, and also in a lot of Sofia Coppola's movies. Well, not a lot, but like in a couple that I'm thinking of, like Priscilla, which has some sexual related issues, and even Marie Antoinette. It's not about sex scenes. It's not about having sex scenes or not having sex scenes, because I've heard people say, like, do we even need them any, like, in movies? Like, I think they're fine. But I think it's about how the women in them are portrayed. And like, this is really silly, but I think what it boils down to a lot of times is like, do they show their boobs or not? Because is there a reason to show boobs? And I'm going to say, honestly, no. As a guy, like, there really isn't. Like, you get the point, you get everything you need. Perfect example, there was a sex scene in, I forget which episode of Night Country, True Detective, with Jodie Foster, and one with Callie Reese. And they both show a point, like, they both have a point narratively, or like, at least, maybe not narratively, but as far as like developing the character, because you see different aspects of their personality from those sexual situations and how they come about and like how the women are in them. And the difference is they just have like sports bras on. Like, that's it. There's two separate, and versus in True Detective season 1, where you have like, I think, is it Alexander Daddario, good actress, not around as much stuff as I thought she'd be, San Andreas, anyway, but like, she's like getting like naked with handcuffs, it's like, I think that's the thing. And I saw something similar in one of Sofia Coppola's movies. It's like Kristen Dunst, like, she has these underage, like what is supposed to be underage women in sexual situations, but it's all about how it's done, I guess, and like how the women or the characters are, like, if they're respected or not, if it's sounds so dumb, artistically done. But yeah, so that was just a little observation, I guess, a little insight that because I heard someone say like the female gaze or like the male gaze, and I was like, well, what, so I was just curious. So I think that's gonna be it for this week. I hit the end of the journal, really just burned through stuff. So thanks for hanging out. Hope you had a good smoke. I had a good smoke. It's time to probably get some dinner, get ready for bed, get ready for tomorrow's Monday, whole nother week. Keep you guys posted on the book. I will make sure this time to put up the email, so let's make it a discussion. You know what I'm saying? Like, I will do a mailbag episode up in here. So yeah, thanks again for listening. Love you guys, and talk to you next time.